The cry for help. The intercepted signal, Doctor. Sarah Chen rubbed her tired eyes and reached for her 20th cup of coffee that shift. The Deep Space Monitoring Station Hermes 7 floated silently in Neptune's shadow, its massive sensor arrays constantly sweeping the cosmos for any sign of intelligent life. For 3 years, Sarah had been Earth's primary xenolinguist, analyzing radio signals and electromagnetic patterns from distant star systems. Most days brought nothing but cosmic background radiation and the occasional pulsar burst. Today was different. The computer's alert tone cut through the quiet hum of the station's life support systems. Sarah's fingers flew across her console as data streams cascaded down her multiple screens. The signal was coming from the Kepler 442 system, roughly 1/200 light-years from Earth. What made her heart race was not the distance, but the complexity of the transmission. This was no natural phenomenon. The signal repeated in mathematical patterns that could only come from an intelligent source. Sarah activated the station's most powerful translation algorithms and began the painstaking process of decoding the message. The basic mathematical concepts came first: prime numbers, geometric relationships, simple equations that any spacefaring species would understand. Then came the more complex parts. As the translation program worked, Sarah found herself holding her breath. The message was desperate, urgent, filled with terms that suggested extreme distress. She called up her assistant, Dr. Michael Torres, who had been monitoring other frequencies in the neighboring section. "Michael, I need you to see this," Sarah said, her voice barely steady. "I think we've got our first real contact." Torres hurried over, his own excitement evident despite his attempt to remain professional. Together, they watched as the computer slowly assembled the alien message into something resembling human language. The message decoded. What they read made both scientists fall silent. The transmission came from a species calling themselves the Zalari. Their message was a desperate plea broadcasted to anyone in the galaxy who might listen. The Zalari described themselves as scholars and explorers, a peaceful civilization that had spent millennia studying the universe and sharing knowledge with other species they encountered. But peace had not protected them. The message spoke of another species, the Vorthak Empire, that had arrived in Zalari space 6 months ago. Unlike the diplomatic first contacts the Zalari were accustomed to, the Vorthak had come as conquerors. They swept through the Zalari system like a plague, destroying cities from orbit and taking prisoners for reasons the message did not specify. "We are not warriors," the transmission continued in its broken, translated form. "Our people have never known the art of war. We build, we learn, we teach. We have welcomed 47 different species to our worlds over the centuries. We thought all intelligent life shared our desire for knowledge and peace." The Zalari had tried to negotiate. They offered their advanced technologies, their vast libraries of scientific knowledge, even their most precious cultural artifacts. The Vorthak response had been to glass another city from orbit. Sarah felt her hands trembling as she read the next part of the message. The Zalari were not just asking for military aid. They knew they had no right to ask strangers to die for them. Instead, they were begging anyone who received their message to remember them. They wanted their history, their discoveries, their very existence to be recorded somewhere in the galaxy so they would not be completely forgotten. "We have 2.3 billion people remaining on our homeworld of Zalaris Prime," the message concluded. "The Vorthak have positioned their fleet in high orbit. They inform us that they will begin the final bombardment in 7 of your Earth days. We do not ask you to save us. We ask only that you remember we existed and that we tried to make the universe a better place." Emergency protocols. Sarah stared at the message for a long moment, then activated the station's emergency communication system. The transmission that followed would reach Earth High Command within minutes, traveling through the quantum entanglement network that connected all human installations. "Earth Command, this is Hermes 7, Sarah began, her training taking over despite the magnitude of what she was reporting. "We have intercepted what appears to be a genuine alien distress signal. Classification: first contact event. Priority: absolute." She transmitted the full message, along with all the technical data about the signal's origin and the translation matrices used to decode it. Then she waited. The response came faster than she expected. Hermes 7, this is Admiral Marcus Kane. Earth, Defense Command. Confirm your analysis. Are we looking at actual alien contact? Sarah took a deep breath. Admiral, I've run every verification protocol we have. This is not a hoax, not a natural phenomenon, and not a human transmission. We are officially no longer alone in the universe, and the first species we've met is about to be wiped out. There was silence on the channel for several seconds. When Admiral Kane spoke again, his voice carried the weight of someone making a decision that would change human history. Dr. Chen, I'm ordering Hermes 7 to maintain continuous monitoring of that system. Record everything. I'm calling an emergency session of the Defense Council. The War Council. 3 hours later, Admiral Marcus Kane stood before the assembled leadership of Earth's defense forces in the secure briefing room beneath Luna Base. The holographic display showed the translated Zalari message alongside tactical assessments of their star system. Around the table sat the finest military minds humanity had produced, men and women who had spent their careers preparing for threats that might never come. General Patricia Hayes, commander of the Earth Marine Corps, spoke first. Admiral, we need to consider the possibility that this is some kind of trap. We've theorized about alien contact for decades, but our first scenario always involved them coming to us, not us stumbling into someone else's war. Admiral Kane nodded. That's a valid concern, General, but our analysis suggests this signal has been traveling for over 200 years. If this is a trap, it's an incredibly elaborate one. Commander Robert Singh, head of Naval Intelligence, leaned forward. Even if it's genuine, Admiral, we're talking about intervening in an alien conflict. We don't know the politics involved. For all we know, this Zalari species could be the aggressors, and the Vorthak are defending themselves. That's possible, Kane agreed. But the message doesn't read like propaganda. These people are facing extinction and they're not even asking us to fight for them. They just want to be remembered. The room fell quiet as the assembled officers considered the implications. Humanity had spent the last century reaching for the stars, driven by curiosity and the desire to find their place in a larger universe. Now they had found that universe, and it was darker than they had hoped. Captain Elena Vasquez, the youngest officer present and commander of the experimental battleship Terran Pride, spoke up. Admiral, what kind of timeline are we looking at? The message said 7 Earth days. Kane consulted his datapad. The signal is 200 years old, but we can extrapolate from their calendar references. If our calculations are correct, we have approximately 18 hours before the Vorthak begin their final assault. The room erupted in discussions about faster-than-light travel capabilities, fleet readiness, and the impossibility of mounting any kind of rescue operation in such a short time frame. Kane let the debate run for several minutes before calling for order. Ladies and gentlemen, he said, his voice cutting through the noise. I'm not asking you to vote on whether we should help these people. I'm asking you to help me figure out how we can help them. The Death World awakens. The decision General Hayes was the first to respond to Admiral Kane's challenge. If we're doing this, we'll need every ship we can get spaceworthy in the next 6 hours. The Terran Defense Fleet can provide 12 heavy cruisers, 8 destroyers, and approximately 40 fighter squadrons. What about the experimental ships? Asked Captain Vasquez. The new prototypes haven't finished their testing cycles, but they're functional. Commander Singh pulled up tactical displays on the central hologram. We could deploy the Terran Pride and her sister ships, but we're talking about technology that's never been tested in actual combat. We don't even know how our weapons will perform against alien hull materials. Admiral Kane studied the fleet roster displayed before him. Humanity's space navy was impressive by the standards of a single-planet species, but they were about to face an enemy that had already conquered at least one interstellar civilization. The mathematics were daunting. Admiral, General Hayes continued, even if we deploy every combat-capable vessel Earth has, we're talking about maybe 60 ships total. We have no idea how many ships the Vorthak have, but any species capable of interstellar conquest probably has us outnumbered. Kane nodded grimly. Then we'll have to be smarter, faster, and more aggressive than they expect. Humanity has one advantage that these aliens might not be prepared for. Which is? Asked Commander Singh. We come from a death world, Kane replied simply. Every other species we might encounter evolved on planets that were kind to them. Earth tried to kill us every single day for millions of years. We learned to hunt mammoths with sharpened sticks. We learned to survive ice ages and volcanic winters. We learned to fight wars that lasted generations and still find reasons to keep going. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. While other species might have developed technology and space travel as natural extensions of their curiosity, humans had clawed their way to the stars despite living on a planet that seemed determined to wipe them out. Captain Vasquez stood up, her dark eyes blazing with determination. Admiral, the Terran Pride can be ready for departure in 4 hours. My crew's been training for deep space operations, and our new fusion drives can cut the travel time to the Zalari system significantly. How significantly? Kane asked. Standard FTL would take about 8 days. With the experimental drives, we can be there in 15 hours. Commander Singh looked skeptical. Captain, those drives have never been tested on a journey of that distance. You could end up scattered across half the galaxy. Vasquez smiled grimly. Then we better make sure we don't, because those people don't have 8 days. The volunteers' word of the alien distress call spread through the fleet faster than official channels could contain it. Within 2 hours of the Defense Council meeting, Admiral Kane's communication board was flooded with messages from ship captains, squadron leaders, and individual crew members volunteering for what everyone understood might be a suicide mission. Lieutenant Jake Rodriguez sat in the pilot's lounge of the carrier ship Valiant, staring at the message on his personal tablet. The 24-year-old fighter pilot had joined the Earth Defense Forces straight out of the academy, driven by the same restless energy that had made his ancestors explorers and adventurers. Like most of his generation, he had grown up dreaming of the day humanity would meet other intelligent species. He had never imagined that first meeting would involve watching an entire civilization die. You signing up for the Zalari mission? Asked his wingman, Lieutenant Sarah Park, as she dropped into the seat across from him. Jake nodded. You? Already submitted my application. My grandmother used to tell me stories about her grandfather, who fought in World War III. She said he always told her that the measure of a person wasn't whether they were brave when it was easy, but whether they stood up when someone needed help, even if it meant dying for strangers. Around them, similar conversations were taking place throughout the fleet. These were not the career military officers who sat in the Defense Council meetings, debating politics and probabilities. These were the men and women who had joined the space service because they believed humanity was meant for something greater than just one world. Colonel Maria Santos walked through the Marine barracks on Luna Base, watching her soldiers prepare for a deployment unlike anything they had trained for. Santos had commanded Marine units in the Belt Wars and the corporate conflicts, but those had been human enemies fighting over human resources. This was different. Colonel called Sergeant First Class David Kim as she passed his squad's preparation. Area. Is it true what they're saying? About aliens asking for help? Santos paused. Information security protocol said she should deflect the question, but these Marines deserve to know what they might be volunteering for. It's true, Sergeant. There's an entire species facing extinction, and they sent out a call asking anyone in the galaxy to remember them. Earth Command is putting together a response force. Kim nodded slowly. Ma'am, my squad's been talking, and we'd like to volunteer. I know it's probably a long shot, and we don't even know what we're fighting. But they're asking for help, Santos finished. And Marines don't walk away when someone needs help. Yes, ma'am, that's about the size of it. Santos looked around the barracks at the faces of her Marines. These were people who had signed up to protect Earth and human colonies. But they were ready to travel 200 light years to protect complete strangers. I'll make sure your names are on the volunteer list, she told them. Fleet mobilization. The next 6 hours saw the most intensive military mobilization in human history. Across the solar system, ships that had been in routine patrol or maintenance cycles were recalled to combat readiness. Weapons systems that existed only as prototypes were rushed into production. Crews that had never worked together were assembled into battle groups. At the Jupiter Orbital Shipyard, Captain Thomas Chen oversaw the final modifications to his heavy cruiser, the Indomitable. Engineers worked around the clock to install additional armor plating and the latest fusion torpedoes, weapons that had never been tested against anything more sophisticated than asteroid targets. "Captain," called his chief engineer, "Lieutenant, Commander Rachel Foster. We're installing the new targeting computers, but I have to warn you, they're designed to track human vessels. We have no idea how effective they'll be against alien technology." Chen watched the work crews swarming over his ship's hull. "Then we'll have to adapt quickly. How are the crew preparations going?" "Fully staffed with volunteers, sir. I had to turn away 3 times as many people as we have berths for." Similar scenes played out across the fleet. The carrier New Horizon loaded with fighters piloted by rookies and veterans alike, all of them knowing they were about to face an enemy no human had ever fought. The destroyer squadrons ran final systems checks on weapons that might prove useless against alien defenses. Admiral Kane stood on the observation deck of Luna Base, watching the greatest fleet humanity had ever assembled prepare for departure. 63 ships in total, carrying nearly 30,000 crew members, all of them volunteers heading into the unknown. Dr. Sarah Chen's voice came over the intercom system. "Admiral, we're receiving additional transmissions from the Zalari system. The situation appears to be deteriorating rapidly." Kane activated his communicator. "Put it through to the fleet, Doctor. Everyone needs to hear this." The translated voice of a Zalari civilian filled the communication channels of every ship in the fleet. The speaker identified herself as Researcher Vela, one of the few surviving scientists on Zalari's Prime. "If anyone receives this message," the voice said, "please know that we tried. The Vorthak have begun bombardment of our southern continent. 40 million of our people lived there this morning. We estimate perhaps a few thousand escaped to underground shelters." The fleet fell silent as they listened to the description of an ongoing genocide. "We do not understand why they do this," Researcher Vela continued. "They take some of us as prisoners, but they seem to kill most of us simply because they can. They broadcast messages to us describing the other species they have destroyed. They are proud of the civilizations they have ended." The transmission cut to static, then resumed with a different voice. "This is Elder Kai of the Zalari High Council. We are broadcasting from the deep shelters beneath our capital city, the Vorthak. Commander has informed us that they will complete their bombardment within hours. We want to thank the species we call the humans for responding to our message. Even if you cannot reach us in time, knowing that someone cared enough to try gives us comfort in these final moments." Admiral Kane activated the fleet-wide communication system. "All ships, this is Fleet Command. We launch in 1 hour. Whatever happens out there, remember that we're not just representing Earth. We're representing the idea that intelligent species should protect each other, not destroy each other." He paused, looking out at the ships that would carry humanity's first expedition to another star system. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're about to show the galaxy what Deathworlders are capable of when someone needs help." The fleet began its departure sequence. 63 ships carrying the hopes of 2 worlds toward a confrontation that would define humanity's place in the cosmos.